Greetings, what I'm going to tell you in the next few minutes. It's simply disgusting and borders on the limits of morality, which is something I am never used to trampling on. Today we have witnessed not a mistake in the midst of chaos, but a cynical staging around the most sacred thing any society has. They're dead. Let's put things in context over the last 2 weeks after the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. The latter had the commitment to hand over the bodies of all the hostages who died in captivity. Hamas has made 1,000 excuses to hinder the handovers, but what happened this Monday bears the unmistakable mark of the barbarity called Hamas. While joint exercises were being carried out between militants of the terrorist group and special envoys from the terrorist community. Special envoys carried out joint exercises with militants. Special envoys carried out joint exercises among militants, the exercises. They are interested in finding him again. Sharper, El Chen, El Chile, El Chenaver abuse, they are there. Minutes later, they call the international representatives to pretend that they have just found the body at that very moment, and you can see a bulldozer picking up the corpse among the disturbed earth. Obviously, this is a literal script of the deception. Bag earth, call to the witness, and of course the applause for the camera, because if they were recording it, as you can see in the image. Then upload these videos and share them with the world, showing that they are fulfilling what was agreed upon in the deal and that Israel is simply a liar who only wants to undermine the agreement to go to war. This is exactly the kind of speech the pro-Palestinian machinery in the West is waiting for to start setting social media on fire. But the truth is this, the one you are seeing, the one that is being shown to the world. And the thing is, whoever turns a human corpse into a prop loses any claim to legitimacy. At that moment, the terrorists handed over the remains to the delegation and thought they had gotten away with it. But apparently no one has told them, no one has informed them that there are eyes watching over them 24 hours a day. But this story doesn't end here. Once the remains are handed over to the medical examiner here in Israel, it is verified that the remains do not belong to any of the 13 deceased hostages, which he is never obligated to return. Under the current truce, 13 bodies remain unreturned. Listen carefully. There were additional remains of Ofir Sarfati and apparently parts of another unidentified body, possibly from a Gazan. This has not been confirmed yet. The thing is, Ofir's body had already been recovered by the CFDI in December 2023. The family said it with pain in the statements they gave to the Israeli media. It's outrageous and nothing but manipulation. The government called it a clear violation of the agreement. And it's hard to imagine anything more cruel than reopening a mourning with a lie of such magnitude. We are in the middle of a truce mediated by the United States, which, among other things, demands the immediate return of all the bodies of the remaining hostages. It's not a technicality, it's the minimum dignity owed to each family. Israel claims Hamas is stalling and fabricating, while Hamas says tunnel destruction makes finding remains difficult. That's the clash of narratives from these past 2 weeks, but today we have Netanyahu assembled the security team and announced there would be a response. On the table are measures such as reducing the aid that continues to enter Gaza, extending operational control in areas under Israeli presence, and resuming targeted strikes if necessary. All within the limits of the agreement with Washington. Added to this is the new military priority declared by the Minister of Defense, Israel Katz, making the destruction of tunnels the main objective in the security zone, which we now know as the Yellow Strip. Because, according to their figures, around 60% of the underground network is still active. And I know and I'm aware that in these 2 years we've seen a huge amount of tunnel destruction. And even on this channel, I've shared countless videos with you of tunnels being destroyed every week. Well, just imagine that was only 40%. There's still 60% left. These tunnels are the ground beneath their feet, where they always retain their ability to blackmail. And well, there's also the human side, which for me is obviously the hardest. Imagine a mother, a son, a brother, a father watching this drone video that filmed this scene. We're not discussing borders or resolutions. We're talking about a burial, a stone, a kaddish, the Jewish prayer that is recited. And in the tradition of the Israeli people, honoring the deceased is non-negotiable. With the dead, you simply don't play around. Today, that line was blatantly crossed. And that's when someone uses human remains to score a political point. What breaks is not just an agreement, it's the very fabric of our shared humanity. The harsh, uncomfortable reality is that it keeps dragging Gaza and Israel into a spiral where even death becomes a tool. And if the truth doesn't exist even in front of a corpse, how can it exist at a negotiating table? That's the question left by everything that's happening. Behind every name, there is a story that was left hanging since October 7th. In this case, it's Ofir Sarfati's story, a young man just 27 years old, hardworking, and a soccer fan. He liked music, and he was kidnapped that day during the attack while trying to escape from the Nova festival. His family had already gone through the worst possible moment in December 2023 when the Israel Defense Forces managed to recover his body during an operation in Gaza. They buried him, they mourned him, and they tried, obviously, to go on with their lives. And now, more than a year later, they get a call telling them that Hamas has handed over what was missing from Ofir's remains. Imagine getting this news, this blow. The body was already in Israel. What they handed over now is worrying. It's something that worries us. It's just that it shocks us. One thing that worries us, it's something. It worries us, it's something. Which one? Humanitarian discovery and apparently fulfilling their part of the agreement. We're not talking about simple media manipulation. It's the use of the corpse of an Israeli as a political tool in front of the eyes of the world. That the truth is always believed in everything. The families of the hostages reacted with a mix of fury and exhaustion, of course. One of the mothers interviewed by Israeli television said it in words that literally sum up everything. They lied to us, even with the bones of our children, and that explains why the pain here turns into outrage. Every day that passes without answers is another day that 13 families keep waiting for something as basic as being able to bury their loved ones. The message this farce leaves behind is devastating. Hamas not only holds the living, it also manipulates the dead, and does so with the coldness of someone who no longer fears the consequences. While the negotiators try to maintain a truce that is, in truth, very fragile, the group shows that there is no word or agreement they cannot break. And that's where the problem goes beyond the war. Because when a movement becomes a system of lies, any hope for reconstruction or dialogue simply falls apart. Israel, for its part, tries to maintain a line between justice and control. It's not easy, obviously. Internal pressures are growing, and many in the country are calling for tougher, more forceful measures. They argue that with an enemy who even fakes death, you can't talk about truces or agreements. But at the same time, there is an awareness that every military decision affects innocent civilians, obviously in Gaza, who are also victims of this manipulation. And in the middle of all this is the truth that we all know but few say out loud. Hamas dragged not only Gaza, but also Israel into a war that has already left thousands dead, millions of lives destroyed, and an abyss of distrust. The only thing Hamas had to do was release the hostages and lay down their arms. But they chose stubbornness, they chose the spectacle of pain, and now even the dead have become pieces in a macabre theater. The question that remains, one that all of us here in Israel are asking, is simple. What kind of peace can be born out of a lie? Because war can end with an agreement, but the moral damage left by these kinds of acts, that isn't easily repaired. The most ironic part is that they pretend to search for bodies and return them. Hamas announced just today that at 8 p.m. for a few minutes while I'm recording this video, it interviewed. Would it deny a new body supposedly found in a tunnel in Khan Yunis? But after what happened, who can believe them? Every announcement is now perceived as part of the same manipulation script. Given all this, Israel once again faces a tough decision. Should he keep trusting a process untouched by deceit, or abandon that illusion and accept the consequences? But what no one here doubts is that every minute that passes without truth and without justice continues to tear this country apart from within, while the world's cameras look away. Here in Israel, a phrase is repeated among the families of the hostages, a phrase that sums it all up. We want our children back, even if it's just to bury them. All right, let me pause briefly before we continue. If you like music, and especially if you would like to hear the Psalms of King David sung in Hebrew and Spanish, I invite you to visit the channel The Voice of Zion, a beautiful project developed by my daughter and my wife. I'm sure you will like it. If you want to listen to them in Hebrew and English, visit the English channel The Voice of Zion. Of course, subscribe and share the channel with anyone you think will enjoy it. I assure you that you'll be pleasantly surprised. All right, let's continue with what we were doing. And while here in Israel, we keep talking about the pain of the families and the cynicism of Hamas, the country looks back again to the origin of all this horror, specifically to the perpetrator of all the barbarity of October 7, 2023. In recent days, previously unseen images of Yahya Sinwar have been published, the man who designed this massacre and who for months was the most wanted face in the entire Middle East. The video, released by the Israeli channel Khan, shows Sinwar in his last days walking with difficulty, wrapped in a blanket, leaning on a cane, trying to escape among the destroyed houses, while gunshots and explosions can be heard around him. For many Israelis, those images are the symbolic end of an era of terror. For others, they are confirmation that even the most feared leaders end up as prey as a consequence of their own actions. Along with the images, a handwritten document was also revealed, found by Israeli intelligence in an underground bunker in Gaza, where evidently Sinwar spent time, with 6 pages written by Yahya Sinwar himself. In August 2022, it wasn't a political speech, but a detailed extermination plan. The text, revealed by the New York Times and confirmed by Israeli sources, includes precise instructions. Attack both soldiers and civilians, set homes on fire using gasoline or diesel from tanker trucks, and film the killings to instill fear and destabilize Israeli society. One sentence from the document sums it all up. 2 or 3 operations in which an entire kibbutz is burned down. And that's exactly what happened a year later. The interceptions by Unit 8200 of the CFDI on that same October 7th show that the Hamas commanders were repeating Sinwar's orders. Burn all, leave nothing. Do those recordings and that manuscript completely destroy Hamas's narrative that their attack was an improvised military response? It wasn't like that. It was meticulously planned for over a year. Every fire, every killing, every image that shocked the world had a script written in advance. And Sinwar, the man who boasted that he would bury Israel with his own hands, he ended up hiding for more than a year in a tunnel, sick, trembling, and afraid to come out to the surface. Trying to escape from the CFDI being a shadow of what he once was, Israel announced his elimination in October 2024 after an operation in Rafah. And although his death closed a chapter, what he left behind is still an open wound. Thousands of lives destroyed, entire communities erased, and a region marked by distrust and pain. The discovery of this document and its exact match with what happened reinforces what many here have been saying for a long time. October 7 was not an accident of the conflict, it was a calculated act of terrorism. And the most serious thing is that it was meant to be seen, recorded, and celebrated. That's why when some people in the world keep talking about symmetry or 2 narratives, here in Israel, people no longer have patience for euphemisms. You can't talk about moral equivalence between a country fighting to survive and an organization that planned how to set entire towns on fire. What we're seeing today isn't just revelations, they're proof of intent. And that anywhere in the world has a name: premeditated crime. And in the end, when you see those images of Singwar walking with difficulty, you understand something that's not in the military reports. Evil also comes to an end. Those who live sowing destruction end up consumed by it, and even though the damage he caused can't be undone, the truth, the one they tried to hide among tunnels and lies, in the end always finds a way to come to light. We will continue to closely follow the developments surrounding this fragile ceasefire. Manasalay kami po, terenari kay Kimwando. We'll see what happens with the next deliveries of the bodies. So subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of the posts we'll be making in the coming days. Don't leave without giving us a like. See you.